Hi guys, welcome back to Two-Stroke Running and Repairs. On today's episode we're going to continue on with the Suzuki Sierra restoration. Alright, so today we're doing the timing belt, water pump and thermostat, as well as the oil pan gasket. So here I'm just removing the timing belt, getting the timing marks lined up, taking the belt off, removing the top pulley, removing the timing belt tensioner, and then removing the water pump. Give that a clean out. It was really rusty and gunky in there. Start taking the old gasket off. Then here I get the wire brush on the end of my drill, and I go through and I just give it a nice final clean up, and then clean up all that stuff afterwards, of course. Here I go, clean it up. Went back in later with some degreaser and stuff too. Alright, now putting the water pump on, gasket, water pump, make sure nothing interferes, and start putting on the bolts by hand. You'll notice that when I'm assembling it, I do almost all of it with the hand ratchet, just so then I have no risk of stripping out the small threads or anything, because these are only M6 size bolts, so really easy to break off if you put too much force onto them. And so all the parts I've used on this engine kind of redo, just for more of a service. Got them all from online auto parts, no affiliation with them, just good prices and a big range for the Suzukis and other cars as well, most four-wheel drives. Here I'm torquing all the bolts to spec, don't want any leaks from that water pump. Again, make sure nothing's fouling on the inside, was all good. Alright, putting the oil dipstick back in. I pulled that off just so I had some clearance around the water pump to get it off. You can probably work around it, but it was easier just to take it off. It's one bolt. And again, torque that up. Alright, now I'm doing the top seal on the crank. Or no, that's the cam seal. So had to work a little bit to get the oil seal remover tool in there, give it a good clean. Get the new seal, compare it, put that in, and then just use a socket to seat it nice and flush, about the same amount recessed. Now the timing belt tensioner, make sure it's on that little metal back piece correctly, and then you mount that up with its 2 screws. Alright, now I'm putting on the back cover for the timing cover. Make sure you put that little foam kind of padding in there. Alright, put that top pulley back on. I used the rattle gun to put that on just so I didn't have to worry about holding the cam. Let's get it back on its timing marks, and then thread the timing belt on. Make sure both pulleys are still on their timing marks. Might take a little bit of wiggling and sliding to get it right. You want the side going from the top to the bottom nice and tight, and the side with the tensioner to have the slack in it. Put that the spring on, use that to get the tensioner right, and then go through and tighten everything up by hand. Spin it over a couple of times and just make sure those timing marks come back, which I was happy with. Just getting that belt sitting right on at the bottom. Hammer was probably a bit overkill, but oh well. I removed the spring just because I wasn't happy with the way it was sitting. Then I've gone back in and reset that. I had it hooked on the wrong way, but still the same amount of tension. Alright, now timing cover. I know this one's a bit dirty. I mainly just put it on to make sure everything cleared. I had a new one coming. Now just kind of putting the water pump fan and pulley on, make sure all of that clears and works with the new water pump, which it does. Now I'm doing the oil pan gasket here, laid it out, and then put all the bolts in, just hand threaded them. It's quite tedious, but again, they're so small and such fine threads, I didn't want to strip them out, so a little bit of time and it's all good. And then I've kind of just nipped them up, not even fully down with the rattle gun, just to save a little bit of time. Yeah, and then ratchet them all in with the hand ratchet. Just 1/4 inch drive. Doesn't need to be anything huge. Then just torquing it all to spec. A bit of a crisscross pattern. And here I'm just redoing a couple of little vacuum and coolant hoses that had deteriorated over time. New ones on. Just make sure this thing stays pretty much trouble free for me. It'd be nice. Whether I'll get that, who knows. And I've used the wrong hose here. I've used fuel hose. I've gone back in later and put some proper coolant vacuum silicone hose on there, and then it doesn't end up with that kink that you can kind of see that I'm trying to work out there. Alright, now the thermostat. I cracked these bolts by hand just because they were so corroded in. And then run them in a couple of times just to try and keep those threads clean. I actually didn't have a thermostat in there and it was corroded to death. Cleaned it all up, in with the new thermostat gasket, and then the thermostat cover housing. Going on. And then yeah, just tightening it down by hand. bolt's a little bit of a pain, probably should have grabbed a deep socket, but yeah. That's it, guys. Reconnect a couple of vacuum lines, and we're good to go. Thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see